In the meantime, I'll just quickly go over our giveaway. So we do have a giveaway going on right now for all these public interviews. So if you attended 2 of our C-level interviews about a week and a half ago, and if you plan on attending, or I don't know if we've done 6 yet, but if you do attend 6 AVP interviews and 2 C-level interviews, then you are eligible to win AirPods, a MacBook Air, an iPad, and a couple of other things. So yeah, if you guys are here and you're in the public and you are eligible so far from going to 2 of those C-levels, make sure to have your attendance be tracked, and then you can win those prizes. So yeah, and then I think let's just let me know when we're ready.
That work?
Hello.
Here.
Yeah, I can hear you guys. Can you hear me? Can you guys hear me? Is it working?
Try talking again.
Hello?
There you
Yes,
go.
Okay, good. I was getting worried there.
Okay, we'll get started right now. I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is William. I'm the incoming student body president. Unfortunately, our APP, our outgoing APP isn't here, so I'll just be asking all the questions today. I just first and foremost wanted to say thank you both so much for making it to this public interview, doing the written application, making it through to the private interview, giving all of your amazing answers, and now speaking with us today. The format that we're going to go through is we have a set of questions lined up for you guys. We're going to call on each of you in a random order, and you're each going to have 2 minutes to answer each questions. After that, we're going to move to a Senate/AS question time, where members of our association can ask you both questions, again, 2 minutes each. And then we're going to move on to our public questions. Those public questions can be filled out using the QR code. So with that being said, yeah, we'll just get started. The first question is, please tell us about yourself and why you are interested in this position. In addition, please tell us about your past experiences and skills gained that make you qualified for the AVP of Health and Wellbeing position. We'll start off with Julia. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you so much for this question. My name is Julia, and I'm an international studies major here with an emphasis on political science. And then speak into the mic. Okay, this is better. So I also have a minor in global health, and this combination of my academic interest really reflects my passion for health and well-being, specifically in the policy making area, and then also just in general in different nonprofit organizations and different programs, all aimed around really emphasizing health through different lenses. And I'm particularly interested in this position as a student with multiple chronic illnesses that have greatly impacted my educational experience so far, both coming to college and then also navigating college with these conditions. And I really use this experience and then also learning about the experiences of others in my community and also in my family to really think about how important it is to support students throughout their collegiate years in every way possible so that they can really get through and prosper. And relating back to some of my past experiences, this last year in Associated Students, I served as the Disabled Students Director, where I focused specifically on advocating for the needs of disabled students across all types of disabilities in all sectors of student life and the academic sphere. And I really learned about how important it is to take the voices of students and their experiences and really be there with them and try to think of different ways to really advocate for change. And then also just the importance of advocacy in general about different experiences of people, because everyone has a different background, and while they may have similar health struggles, it really is an individualized thing. And so I think I really learned about how to learn from students and how to take all these diverse voices and to make it into something more understandable to advocate for policy change. And then alongside that, I also have various experiences in the government sector where I focused a lot on serving constituents of particular districts and different issues or struggles they may have without revealing too much information, different things about paid family leave or disability insurance. And I think that this real world experience is really hard.
That is 2 minutes. Apologies. Tala, you have 2 minutes.
Hello, you guys can hear me, right? Wait, the time started. Okay. Hi guys, I am so sorry that I couldn't make it in person. Unfortunately, I had to travel last minute out of state. But I'm Tada. My name is Tada Atalla. I'm a first year at UC San Diego. I'm studying cognitive science with a specialization in neuroscience. And I've always been passionate about health and wellness. This passion that I have, I think it came from my very own life because I do have two younger siblings with autism and then an older sibling with epilepsy. So I have seen firsthand how health inequities, whether in access or understanding or just intervention overall, can drastically affect individuals and families overall. So, like throughout my lifetime with my siblings, I had to navigate all these complex systems with like alongside my family. So, like neurology visits, special education, like seizure treatments, all the above. So, I think that opened my eyes to the gaps that exist in support structures within health in general, like outside of UCSD, but just health in like overall, and especially for like those from underserved or marginalized communities. So that experience drives everything that I do, and it's why that like I've pursued neuroscience. It's why that I'm like in research positions. I've also been involved in different campus initiatives that also center health and well-being. I'm also a TRIO SSS student, so I'm front desk, and I've seen like firsthand like the strength and courage and resilience that comes from marginalized and underserved communities in the like face of systemic barriers. So all these experiences, I think, altogether have motivated me to be an advocate for creating holistic and inclusively responsive health and wellness resources that fill in the current gap that does exist. I'm also in PVC, which is Political Voices for Change. So we choose a different country every single quarter, and we basically just raise awareness about humanitarian crises that the people are going through within that country. So advocacy is very important for me, and I try to centralize as much as I can.
That is your 2 minutes, but thank you very much.
Mhm.
Second question is, how would you describe your leadership style and how would you motivate team members slash resolve any conflict that were to arise? We'll start off with Paula and then we'll go to Julia. You have 2 minutes.
There we go, sorry. Okay, so I would describe my leadership style as empathetic, collaborative, and very much like very proactive, not reactive. I believe that creating a space where people like feel safe sharing their ideas, their concerns, their thoughts, and everything, while also keeping, like internalized structure and holding people accountable individually, that's like the core, and actually like being productive and actually getting things done and communicating with others within the team. So I know that like true leadership isn't just about like delegating tasks and like assigning like you do this, you do this. It's about like actually listening to people deeply. It's about like understanding their perspectives. It's about learning from others, learning from your own mistakes, learning from their mistakes, and building trust through consistency within that relationship that you built. So when a conflict arises, I think I approach it like head on. So, but I would be like compassionate about it, of course. Like I'd say like I'd make a time for one-on-one conversations to fully understand each person's perspective, or like the person's perspective that like is having an issue or that is having like a miscommunication. And I would try to work with everyone collaboratively to find a common goal or like some type of guide to work towards a solution together. I also believe in setting like team expectations very early, setting goals really early on so we're all on the same page, having regular check-ins, open channels of communication. So like small frustrations are like easily like out of the way. So yeah, because of my background, I feel like I've grown up in a way that emotional understanding is key. So you have to be able to like stay calm under pressure. You have to be able to mediate, make sure people feel respected even when they disagree with your opinion or another person's opinion. So the goal as a leader is just to uplift, not to like control or like override.
Thank you very much. Julia, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would describe my leadership style as understanding and strategic. I think that these two qualities pair really well together to make sure that the office or team that I'm leading is really getting things done and fulfilling the initiatives it intends to fulfill, but also making sure that it's a good environment for everyone. Because as students who are involved in this association and student government, it's really important that we are developing and that it's not a scrutinizing or harsh environment to be in. So I think that the dynamic between being very understanding, but then also very strategic and orderly about what plans we want to pursue is a really good way to run things. And part of being understanding is definitely a lot about hearing people's diverse perspectives. I think having a diverse group is really critical to having productivity, but it can also have some negative consequences when there are conflicts that arise. So I think I best addressed conflicts by really taking time to understand the root of the conflict and all of the parties involved, because it's really hard to sometimes be really quick to react and automatically go off what you already know, but really taking time to understand the people you're working with and the conflict and different things in the past that may have exasperated it will really help address it. And then having these conversations, really understanding people's different perspectives, and then trying to find a strategic way to address it really helps resolve these conflicts. And I think it's also interesting to note that there's different types of conflicts that can come up in group environments, and then really understanding those before I even step up into leadership roles and really trying to predict what different conflicts can arise really helps with the response to that.
Thank you very much. The next question is, the Office of Health and Well-being has focused on developing sustainable initiatives which have served the student body at large and more vulnerable groups of students. How do you plan to expand this work/focus? You have 2 minutes, starting with Julia and then Tala.
Yes, thank you. I think sustainability is definitely something that's very important. We're always trying to learn, we're always trying to grow and be better, both for students and then also the world around us. So I think sustainability has two different main aspects to it, both in the actual program or the actual thing that's being done, and then also how we're doing it and what resources we're using. So I know that the Office of Health and Wellbeing has really focused on sexual health and reproductive health, which I think are very important initiatives that I would love to expand on. And I think a lot of this time this comes with resources that we need to strategically plan to make sure that we're using the budget wisely, especially amid different budget cuts at the state level, but also making sure that our programs are truly serving students by continually getting feedback, because we don't want to be spending money or spending time or energy or resources on something that aren't actually serving students. And I think a really good way to make sure that our programming is diverse and also really takes into account those diverse perspectives is to really focus on work with different student organizations, because at UC San Diego, we have so many people that are passionate about health in the medical profession and really fighting against different inequities against marginalized groups that occur every single day. And I think really using all of this passion that's around us and leveraging it to create more sustainable, more long-term projects instead of focusing on just a group of 5 or 10 people, really using the efforts of everyone on campus who cares about so many different things will help make sure that all of our programming is really sustainable and that it really suits the needs of students.
Thank you very much. Tala, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, so to continue making initiatives sustainable on campus, I would definitely start with 3. Wait, can you hear me? You guys can hear me, right? Okay, hopefully. Okay, so I would start with 3 leading pillars. So I would focus on partnership, I'd focus on feedback, and I'd focus on continuity. So first, I would like to work closely with the departments that I'm already going to be working with, but like collaborate with them in a way that they're co-creators, not just collaborators. So I'd work with CAPS, I'd work with HPS, I'd work with SHS. They already have the infrastructure and they already have the resources, but we can help amplify and expand them in ways that speak directly to the students' needs. And I agree with what Nicolette was saying. Like, we definitely need to collaborate more with student organizations on campus, different cultural organizations, different religious organizations as well, because those are also not getting the attention that they need in a lot of ways. But I would also establish regular feedback systems. So wellness surveys, anonymous forums, peer forums. So students have a direct line to our office. This way, we're not guessing what the students need or trying to like put kind of words in their mouth or assume that like this is what they want. We're actually responding in real time and we're actually figuring out what they are asking for, what they request and what they need at that current time or what they need in the future at our school. Third, I would also have like close like mentoring and like empowering or empowerment within my team. So like each director or advocate under the office would have very clear responsibilities tied to their ongoing projects. They document everything, plan structure so events can continue year to year, not just like a one-time event. So we'd have like more frequent workshops, more frequent like weeks in which we're focusing on one aspect of health, maybe like that. And then an example of like this type of workshop or this type of reoccurring event is like a wellness access week. So in this case, we could do like a series of workshops and trainings across campus, planned across like multiple offices and sustained through student input.
That is
Okay.
the 2 minutes. Thank you, but Julia, you have, oh wait, sorry. We just answered that question right there. Okay, thank you. The final question is, what does health and wellness on campus mean slash look like for you? And what is your vision for fostering that on campus? We'll start with Tala and then we'll move to Julia. Tala, you have 2 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So health and well-being to me, or yeah, health and well-being to me, I would say is having the freedom, having support from your community, support from the school, and having the access to the care that you need. So not just for your like your physical health, because I think that's like what the people assume when they think of health. It's just the first thing is like your physical well-being and also mental as well, but like all together, like your mind, your body, and your identity. And you should have the support and access for this without any fear, without any shame, or any unnecessary barriers. So it means knowing that you can turn when you're in a crisis or when you're not feeling good. It means that you have spaces that you could go to that prevent the crisis in the first place. So being more preventative instead of just providing a solution when the problem occurs. So it's not just a physical or mental health, it's emotional resilience, it's also financial stability, balancing academic wellness and community and belonging. So my vision for UCSD to help students feel supported in this way, in this regard, I want to make sure they feel seen in all these areas. So I would build on what the Health and Wellbeing Office already does, partnering with the departments again, CAPS, CARE, etc., while pushing for initiatives that are more intersectional and student-led. So I could lead like a health navigation campaign that would help first gen students or disabled students understand that access and wellness services in the way like understand what access is or sorry understand what access and what resources they have that are actually culturally relevant to them and actually inclusive to them because well-being isn't just like one size fits all. It's not just like applicable to everyone and everyone feel like takes care of their health in different ways. So I want to uplift the different versions of what care and what health looks like to each individual instead of just making sure that there's like this plain one type of health initiative, one type of way of addressing health. Yeah, there.
Thank you both so much. I hope you guys understand we're just on a time constraint as we have another interview after this. But with that being said, Julia, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. To me, health and well-being is really about being seen at different levels of both campus life, student life, and then overall being a member of the UCSD community. I think like we've been talking about, health and wellness is a very individualized thing, and it can be really hard when we have these large institutions or even student organizations that are broadly trying to promote health and well-being. And while we appreciate their efforts, there's always more work that can be done to make sure that each student is seen and that each student their needs are properly being addressed so that they can have the best experience possible as students. And I think that my three major parts of my vision for health and well-being on campus next year. Are first focusing on embedding wellness initiatives better throughout all of student life. So I think that this really has to do with both actually taking classes, different programs, different opportunities that are put in place to deal with potential academic stress or academic hardship, and then also just being a student. It can be a very hard, stressful time, and like we've been talking about, everyone has different experiences. So I really want to make wellness activities and programming and resource distribution more prominent on the UCSD campus, and then also more embedded throughout the physical campus through creating a wellness center initiative program in each of the 8 colleges so that students have more a better place to go get help when they might not want to go to the centralized resources that we already have. The second part of this is working with student organizations and the colleges to make sure that campus health and well-being initiatives are really spread throughout all areas of student life. I think that we focus so much on the overhead operations.
2 minutes, sorry. Thank you both so much for, that concludes our pre-written questions for you guys. So thank you both so much for answering those. With that being said, I do want to quickly remind everyone who's in the audience to please, if you can, fill out that QR code and you can ask questions for our public input sector. That's going to happen in a couple of minutes. In the meantime, we are going to shift to Senate question times. If any members of the association would like to ask a question, raise your hand. Senator Cameron, you have to speak. Give you the floor, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. As a leader, how will you conduct outreach to various groups such as the college council as well and help being advocates?
We'll start off with Julia and then we will go to Tala.
Yes, thank you. I definitely think that this outreach and this clear line of communication is very important to making sure that different initiatives truly serve students and that they're really getting out, because we don't want a program that students can't actually use. So I think that this really comes to building relationships with different representatives from college councils or student organizations and really trying to talk to everyone. And if they're not receptive, that's okay, but we really need to find the people who are willing to help us out, who are willing to work with us, who truly see our vision and truly care about health and well-being of students. So I think it really comes down to building these relationships through more traditional ways, like just emailing or going out to different events and really trying to talk to people face to face. Because I think that can go a really long way with showing what you're passionate about and how you really are eager to work with different people to expand initiatives.
Thank you very much. Paula, you have 2 minutes.
Can the question be repeated again, please?
Yeah. As a leader, how do you conduct outreach to college to specific interest groups, such as the health and well-being advocates for the college councils?
Okay, got it. So kind of like I mentioned earlier, for open-ended communication and just thorough communication between anyone and everything, and especially with this specifically, I would definitely implement a system where there'd be like online surveys distributed quarterly. I would also go in person, talk to these people individually. I would have like in-person like feedback boxes if they don't want to like submit online, if they don't want to speak to me in person, maybe. And then I would distribute these boxes like through the different wellness hubs like CAPS and SHS and the Zone. And maybe like different like wellness listening booths in a way. So like during campus events or during other initiatives that we have, students can come and other leaders can come and share their concerns in like a casual setting. It could just be a normal conversation. I would also collaborate more with, yeah, like I would go to like individual colleges and see where there's gaps, where there's problems, and what's going on there, and how I could help them bridge those gaps between the students and the colleges, and what the students in each college are missing.
Thank you very much. We have time for one more question from someone in the association. Does anyone have any questions? No, okay. We're gonna move on to our public question time. So let me just pull that up. The one and only question is, how do you plan on serving students with disabilities specifically? We're gonna start off with Tala and we're gonna go to Juliet. Tala, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I really like this question actually. So, to serve students with disabilities specifically, I would do a lot of collaborations with the OSD office. I would be very, very much in communication with the OSD office and seeing what the students are missing, seeing what the students are feeling left out of, or maybe feel or they feel like they're missing a very crucial part of their education, or they're missing like parts of like the social aspects of school because of their disability. I would try to address those gaps, have more awareness events, have more inclusive events in which they actually feel seen and heard and respected, and make sure that the OSD office is also making all the accommodations that they need in order to feel accommodated, in order to feel like they are meant to be on campus and they're seen and heard. And I would also make sure that there would be like again, like the surveys are so important. So I would get anonymous surveys from those students, hopefully, so they can tell me directly what they want to see and what they want changes in. And hopefully we'll be able to address that in ways that they feel like truly embedded within the campus and campus life and academic life as well. That's my goal for that.
Very much. Julia, you have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I think the first thing I would really like to focus on would be amplifying student voices. I learned a lot about the history of advocacy for disabled students throughout UCSD history, and while there have been some very strong initiatives, I think that currently there is a lack in the group organizing of students with disabilities. And when I talk to people individually about their experiences, they've expressed a lot of concern about this issue. And so I think we really need to focus on bringing students with disabilities together to talk about their shared goals and really understand their voices so that we can show the campus how much we care about making change. I think the second thing I would like to focus on is working with the Office of Students with Disabilities. I heard a lot of negative feedback about their services, and I think that this is something that has gone on for too long and that definitely needs to be changed. And I think a good initiative to work on is the new Disabled Students Resource Center that is currently being developed. I've talked with the Vice Chancellor of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion about this project, and I would love, as AVP of Health and Wellbeing, to get more involved in making sure that we have a safe space for students, that they can be really supported as they face college life and academics and all the stress that comes with it while having a disability. And third, I like to focus on campus accessibility, both physically and different mental aspects of it. I think there's many areas of campus life that are very inaccessible and that can often be overlooked. And I think that we really need to find a team of people who can go out and find these problems, because there are many people who are passionate about this, and really propose to the university and administration why they need to be changed so that students can better enjoy their time on campus.
Thank you very much. We do have one more question, so you guys will have 2 minutes each, but if you want to say quicker than that, feel free. But I do kind of want, it's nice to have more than just one public input question. So this question is, how would you advocate for reproductive rights on campus? And Julia, you'll go first, and then Tala will go second. You have 2 minutes.
Yes, thank you. I think that this is a very important issue, especially given the current administration and then just the different policy changes that are going on at all levels of government. So I think we truly need to support students that are going through potentially different reproductive issues. I think one of the first things I'm thinking of is continuing the current programming that the Vice President's Office of Health and Wellbeing has worked on for so long. And whether this be through free resources or different things, I would really like to continue this. I also think that it is really important to make sure that students know that they're heard and that they have a safe place to go to, despite any current struggles that are going on right now. So really working with the different on-campus services that already exist and then different organizations that care so much about this issue to make it a priority that UCSD really does care about the experiences of students and the different things that they're going through. And then finally, just different events, like just a couple weeks ago, the Office of External Affairs did a reproductive justice event where we had different representatives from all different on-campus organizations or different services. They came out and they shared information, they gave out resources, and so many people, I was there, I was helping out. So many people really appreciated all they had to offer and all that there was to learn. So just continuing initiatives like that.
Thank you very much. Tala, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, okay, so I also agree this is a very important issue and very prevalent right now with administration, with everything that's going on in our world and our country. So for this specifically, I think I would expand access to I would try my best to expand access to reproductive health resources and rights on campus to the best of our ability, of course. So this could include like free menstrual products dispensers, more of them. I know they already exist, but we should have more in more bathrooms. And then we should also expand the like one-stop wellness vending machine. I know that exists in Price Center. There should be more access to condoms, more access to pregnancy tests with multilingual instructions, of course, and have just that available to students so they can access that when they need it. Also to include Plan B, I know that I think the basic hub, the basic needs hub in Manville, they do have that. They do provide that for students. So I think we need to expand that and make it more accessible for students if they need it. And then just overall, like hosting regular, like know your health rights workshops is very important. So I could collaborate with CARE, I could collaborate again with SHS and other student organizations on campus so people know what their rights are on campus as a student. And also advocating for like telehealth appointments, just like checkups for birth control if they want that. Also, like consultations and medication renewals, and all those things are very, very important for reproductive health. And just overall, promoting awareness on the legal rights under the California law is also very important for access to abortion, access to medical privacy, and their insurance coverages. So those are the main things that I would try to do to bridge that gap.
Thank you very much. That concludes today's public interview. First and foremost, again, I just want to say, I can't say it enough. Thank you both so much for going through this entire process. It really means a lot, just being civically engaged. Doing that written application, making it through that private to that private interview, and then coming to this public interview. It really is a lot, and I know it can be stressful at times, especially, when you're like, we have an interview in 2 days, come to this, and then come to this, and send your photos. So just thank you both so much for making it this far. And with that being said, you'll hear back from us super soon. If everyone in this room could give a round of applause for both our. Yeah, thank you so much, and you'll hear back from us soon.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Okay, we could get our two
Oh, what do you think, what non-numerics for?
Hello. Thank you both so much for coming to this public interview. Super excited to get this started. I do want to also preface this by saying we are on a very tight time schedule. So that's to be done by 6 p.m. So we might limit some of our public question time down to 1 minute, or just cut out a couple of those questions. So with that being said, we'll just get started. I do want to quickly go over the giveaway. So if you are in the audience and you attended 2 C-level public interviews a couple weeks ago, and you are planning or have already attended 6 ABP interviews, then you are eligible to win, AirPods, a MacBook Air, an iPad, and some other items. So make sure to check in or scan that QR code, the public evaluation. That's how we will track your attendance. I do also want to quickly say before we get started, I also want to congratulate both of our candidates, Christopher Creans and Ethan Shih, for making it to this public interview. So thank you both so much. With that being said, I'll quickly introduce myself, then our AVP will, and he will begin and ask you guys those questions. So with that being said, my name is William Simpson, and I am the incoming student body president.
I am Kabir Vaz, and I'm the outgoing AVP of Student Organization. Alright. Okay, so the first question is, can you please tell us about yourself and why you're interested in this position? In addition, please tell us about your past experiences and skills gained that makes you qualified for the AVP of Student Organizations position. Okay, sorry. Christopher, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Chris. I'm a incoming fourth year at UCSD. In my last 3 years at UCSD, I've been a student org leader, mainly from different student organizations on campus, Triton Gaming being one of them. I also worked at UCSD Esports. I was previously on board for ACM, and I've done work with VGC in the past. On top of that, I have been doing work in student affairs for 2 years for Eleanor Roosevelt College. I worked with the Office of Innovation and Commercialization for a year now, and I'm very passionate about this campus and the space. I believe student orgs is a really important community that uplift a lot of people here, and I believe that it deserves a lot more attention. So I'm running for the position because I have a lot of passion for it, and I want to see the office grow further and continue doing some good work.
Ethan, you have 2 minutes. Hi there. I am Ethan. I'm also incoming fourth year at my major at Six College, and I have been an AS auditor for the past about quarter and a half of my year so far at UCSD, and I've been enjoying the position. Currently, my skill set is involving basically auditing events that have happened and watching communities grow together and potentially be able to come out together as a group from Triton Gaming, Triton Tales, Keyboard Club, and a lot more other organizations. And it's something like this that makes me very passionate about seeing these communities grow, and something that I want to do to help out as future AVP would be to help boost these engagement through the concepts of like advertising for them and using the resources that I can use. And through this, that I can watch these communities grow further and beyond. And that's why I'm interested as AVP for Office of Student Organizations. All right, thank you. Here's the next question. So when you're enforcing a policy for student organizations, what do you see as good and bad reasons for exceptions? As an example, consider AS's logo requirement for marketing. Every student org needs the AS logo on their marketing materials. What do you see as the pros and cons of strictly enforcing this policy? And how will you ensure the long-term consequences of your actions would align with the policy's goals? The first person for this question is Ethan. You have 2 minutes. Hi, so for in terms of punishments and using, for example, your example is the AS logo, is that I want to enforce this to try to create some set of standards for the organizations to follow. And through this, it's so that I am able to basically enforce the concept idea that there are certain regulations that must be followed for that office and organizations must like essentially be enforced. Through this, and additionally, there are some like outliers that you have mentioned. There are organizations who probably have host events like once a year, and there has to be exceptions to that in terms of the punishments, and thinking that like because they only host these events once per year, and if they don't follow the regulations, they are to be punished kind of differently in a way that it affects them, similar to how it affects other organizations. All right, thank you. The next person is Christopher, and you also have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I would say that I think at the end of the day, enforcement is very important at upholding a level of standard for organizations. With your example with the graphic logo, logo, enforcement that came in within this year. I do think that at a certain level, it is really important to kind of share this connection between AS and student orgs. And I do believe that some policies at the end of the day need to be enforced no matter what. And I think that that should extend to a lot of different performance, or a lot of different things that we've had in the past, including programming funding cap, certain requirements about what funding should be used on is incredibly important. And obviously the logo one being a new one. After all, the office is funding these student org events, and so I think it is very fair to at least ask these student orgs to do so. But I think it is a lot of nuance. Student orgs have events that they make 20 to 30 to 40 graphics on. Them not having the AS logo on 3 or 4 of them should not be the end of the world. It's not something that we should really enforce super heavily in that case. However, if you're student org with one single graphic and doesn't have that logo, then I think it is fair. And I will say that overall, I think that enforcement in the last 2 years of the office has grown because a lot of policies have been put in place. I think we should really think about towing the line between how we come across as student orgs and enforcement. Student orgs should be a position that look up to us as a voice and not fear the office. And so we should represent the way we enforce with that in mind.
All right, thank you. So here's the next question. What do you anticipate as the largest challenges you will face as the APP in the next year, and how will you overcome them? So you will have 2 minutes, and Christopher, you're the first person for this question.
Yeah, I would say that one of the biggest things I see on the horizon is funding. I think this has been a thing that has been in constant circles of student orgs in the last 2 years, with the introduction of the $8,000 cap, and this year with new requirements and performance agreements. Funding at the end of the day will be probably the most important thing for the office to kind of look at and face. And I would say that my big push and what I would like to do in this year is trying to diversify where we're getting that funding from. Historically, the majority of student orgs only use programming funds and tournament funds for the things that they're funding within our student orgs, and that's limited. Even if the work we can do in the office can expand that, there's not any way we can get an infinite amount of money in that pool. And so my push for next year would be really trying to connect it with other offices, other senators, and develop student works and projects and other budgets. For example, at the beginning of this year, the College Council Office had leftover money for collaboration money that student orgs could use. And I think this is a good way to diversify and expand the way we're using funds for student orgs to give them new lifelines and new pipelines to fund their student orgs without having to drain a lot of the money from the office itself.
Next is Ethan, you have 2 minutes. Similarly, I feel like student organizations have trouble understanding what the funding guide policy is. And I feel like that's one of the issues that I'll have to try and tackle next year as AVP. I plan on trying to help being more active in terms of trying to respond to questions, providing more use of accents, helping maintain the asfunding.org website. Additionally, as well as maintaining the asfunding.org's chatbot in terms of improving, updating the database with all the information that's being provided in terms of new policies that we haven't brought up previously. Like, for example, this year there's no allowance for non-UCSD students. However, next year there could be a possible petition to have non-UCSD students, and it's information like this that needs to be updated within the chatbot itself. In addition to that, I plan on just being able to just be more friendly towards anyone who needs to be more more information and having more accessibility in terms of my schedule timeframe, allowing some organizations to come and reach out to me, knowing to know about small information or just to understand about anything within the fund guide at all. Okay, so the last question is, it's a scenario question that's kind of related to the previous question, but very different. So at the University of Michigan, recent years have seen student organization funding demand greatly exceed available resources, driven by rising enrollment and a surge in student org registration. For instance, in the past winter term, UMich received $1.2 million in funding requests, and they can only fulfill 1/4 of those. UCSD is experiencing a similar trend in student org registration with a growing number of registered orgs and fewer funding barriers due to, just as one example, a funding guide being more easy to access. If a comparable situation arises during next year, how will you address the imbalance in supply and demand, and what do you think will be the best policy? Ethan is first. You have 2 minutes. So my role as AVP is to just provide equity to all people. I do respect all kinds of organizations trying to emerge, try to do something new and innovative, and spending a lot of resources. As well as I do respect large organizations like Ryan Gaming, who is successful in terms of like making their GTS events, and as well as Keyboard Club with their huge volunteer keys, or like all the keyboard meet. And something that I feel like is important is to just understand the statistics behind what people are able to do, and basically if they're able to achieve it with a certain amount of funding, and cutting out on where is kind of unnecessary in terms of where funding is actually needed versus where it's wanted. And through that, I found doing this more deep diving in terms of like with each organization on their spendings, and trying to cut down on like the unnecessary portions, while making sure that they're still able to have their meets, have their gatherings, have their overall event successfully. All right, thank you. Chris is next.
Yeah, I would say very similarly. I think that student orgs, as someone who's been an orientation leader for the last 2 years, I've seen a lot more students coming into the campus, being interested in student orgs, wanting to get involved in the space. And as we uptrend with more student orgs, more accessibility, obviously more funding will happen. But I will say that I think there needs to be a stark contrast with how previous policies have been in place and how we handle them in the future. I was there 2 years ago when the $8,000 budget cap was put on student orgs to try to prevent something like this. And at the same time, we really infantilized student orgs and said that, like, this is what we think is value from you. Well, it's not really the case. Student orgs have a lot of value to the campus outside of just pure attendance numbers. And I like what you said. I think we really need to look at these student orgs. But I will also add that I think it needs to be a lot of what impact they're bringing. A lot of student orgs, like the larger student orgs, might be looked at in a negative light because they use a lot of money, but at the same time, they're bringing the most amount of attention, sponsors, partners to the campus, to give money back to our ecosystem. And a lot of that's ignored with the current way we look at attendance per money ratio. And a lot of stuff needs to be expanded on and looked at more lightly, and more like deeply with the way we kind of evaluate what the impact of orgs are. Now, I definitely think there definitely will be enforcements that need to happen, but I think basing it off of those merit and basing it off those impact is an important way we guide our funding in the future.
Thank you both very much for answering those questions, and thank you, Kabir, for asking them. That concludes our pre-written questions. Now we are going to, actually, sorry, in the meantime, if you guys could please, any member of the public, please fill out this QR code with some potential questions that you want to ask our two candidates over here. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to questions from our Senate. Would anyone like to ask the question?
Yeah, so obviously funding is one of the most important parts of how we support student orgs at the association, but what are some non-funding related needs that the office of student orgs could help these student orgs on campus fund their events?
Who answered the last?
I answer first.
Okay, then it'll be Christopher and then
I appreciate that question, and I think it's something that's really important with what we look at this next year. I think a few things, and I would say are low-hanging fruit to an extent, is kind of expanding on just quality of life. I know the office did really good work this year with stuff like moving the timeline for funding from 6 weeks to 5 weeks and making a new website, which was severely outdated in the past, and that's really good work. But I think a lot of the stuff comes down for advocacy and the way you work on campus. One thing I think is a lot about like marketing student orgs. Student orgs have limited marketing capabilities. If you look at the funding guide, there is even a clause where AS can revoke funding if student orgs don't market well enough. But these smaller orgs may not actually have that ability to do the marketing pushes that we might expect from them. And being able to kind of give that assistance is important. On top of that, in the same line is education, educating these smaller orgs on how to use funding, how to expand that. and how to grow kind of the way they can operate within AS realms. But I think lastly, and a big push that I've done with fellow student org leaders in the past is making student org events open to the public to some extent in some occasions, because to be honest, the spotlight that we bring to UCSD as student orgs can really grow our space and revamp it in the future. It's something that's really overlooked, and I think these are some things that can really be used to kind of help grow non-funding assistance with student orgs.
Very much. Ethan, you have minutes.
So as Christopher previously mentioned that marketing is a huge problem within many small organizations, and I feel like student organizations can actually help a lot with that. And through this, we could do through the asfunding.org website or through the AS Instagram itself to help the student organizations advertise their own events. There are like 3 steps for each that we can do, from like checking through the AS funding form and writing the when, where, and what the event is about in our asfunding.org website, and as well as for the Instagram, just talking with the representative of each organization, as well as just kind of get some graphics from them that they would want us to advertise with in order to help them spread out the message about their event, to help spread about more awareness, to let people know what they're trying to, what their event is about, when it is, and how they can attend or where they can attend it.
Thank you very much. For the sake of time, we are going to move on to our public questions. So we'll just get that started. The first question is, what criteria would you use to assess whether a club deserves funding? We'll start with Ethan and then we'll go to Christopher. You have 2 minutes.
So about what club deserves funding is kind of arbitrary in the sense that there are definitely new clubs who deserve funding, as well as large clubs like that also deserves funding in terms of like who deserves it more. And I personally I want to say statistic at the very beginning for clubs with history, but with clubs without history, I want to give them just a shot in the dark to see if they're able to do what big clubs can do as well. With this has been previously shown in the speaking of the keyword club, where we have reached about a large number of audience in terms of the thousands, while still being a club within its first year of making. It's essentially reaching about the same level as possibly TP has to be reaching for. Additionally, as a role in ADP, my job is to provide equal equity instead of equality, so that every organization has a chance to shine, and that every organization essentially has a chance to get funding.
Thank you very much. Christopher, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I think that it definitely is very nuanced in different occasions. I think that obviously some of the cases where these student orgs are going in for appeals because they're larger, it really should be dependent on what their impact they're bringing, and what they're actually doing. I think an example is of the time I've been in Triton Gaming, where we've brought in sponsors like MSI on campus over 11 years of club history. These sponsors have gone on to fund the Triton Esports Center, help expand actual physical locations on campus. And that type of reinvestment is something that should be valued. The same reason that we look at normal sponsorships when it comes to appeals, the same reason we look at fundraising. These student orgs are larger, they have more capabilities, and they should be doing more on campus, and that's how we should value it. But with smaller student organizations, I think the biggest example for my mind is the Video Game Development Club, which is a CSD and CSI club, and for the last year, they've tripled in size, and they've been doing events that are bringing hundreds of people out of the blue, and they're not using a lot of funding for that. And in those cases, we really need to look at them and go, what is the impact? What is the time they're spending? And how is it rising over occasions? You know, if they're ballooning in size over a few months, and obviously they deserve some funding, obviously it should be more acceptable for them to go into an appeal if they ever need to surpass that budget. But I do agree, I think every student org should have a right to request some amount of funding, because they are paying that student fee as students themselves.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more questions, but both of them are kind of similar. So for the sake of time, we're going to ask this question just to be the final question. Both of you have a plethora of experience in student organizations. This role requires a sense of objectivity. Given your relationship with your organizations, how do you intend on maintaining an objective relationship and not unfairly granting funding / giving preferential treatment? We'll start with Christopher and then we'll go to Ethan. You have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I appreciate this question. As the incoming president for Triton Gaming, I understand that that could definitely be a concern. But I will share is that I believe accountability is something that's been important to my time in the student workspace. After a 4-year increase in Triton funding from Triton Gaming, this is one of the first years we were actually using less funding the year prior. And so that was because I was also looking at budget, what was necessary, and what needed to actually be funded. And that resulted in less overall funding for this year. It's something that I think is a level of accountability that is important and something we should normalize. And it's accountability that should be applied across all certain realms and ends. With regard to that, I would say that I think that it's also something that's out of need. As someone who has been very prominent within student workspaces, smaller student organizations are willing to go to me and ask questions about what we need to do, what's capable, what can they do to kind of get wrapped up into the system. And at a certain point with this position, I believe it's out of a point of trying to build a better future on campus. And that's why I'm running for the position. If I do the things like the question I implied, which is like favoritism, looking at student orgs and being like, what budget should I be giving them? That kind of actually hindered growth overall. And I would say that that's maybe the reason why I feel like very biased and why I'm willing to push to do accountability across all realms.
Thank you very much. And I just want to quickly say the senators coming in, we're pretty much about to be done, so feel free to sit down at this table. Ethan, would you like me to repeat the question or?
Yes, please.
Okay, the question is, both of you have a plethora of experience in student organizations. This role requires a sense of objectivity. Given your relationship with your student organizations, how do you intend on maintaining an objective relationship and not unfairly granting funding / giving preferential treatment? I have 2 minutes.
So I have previously worked with the keyboard clubs around in the fall quarter of this year. And in order to pursue in more of like my academics and as well as just my current AS position. And it was through that I'm able to just currently be unaffiliated with any organizations, which allows me to be fairly unbiased towards every single organization as a whole. From what I've seen, the Keyboard Club is just a whole new organization with new members, new officers, and new what's the term? Principal members who are talking and trying to like advocate for funding. And in a way, will this actually change my opinion in terms of like trying to give them more funding or any sorts of that, as I personally just don't have any personal connection with them anymore. This leads me to be able to create a unbalanced situation for everyone and for basically an equal situation for everyone as a whole.
Thank you very much. That concludes the questions that we have for you today. If everyone could just give our 2 applicants a round of applause. I want to know we have our question and wait, is this there? We have our public evaluation form, which is right there. So any members of the public or anyone who watched this interview, if you guys would like to fill out that QR code and let us know what you thought about the interviews, the different candidates. This is going to help our hiring committee make our decision. But for YouTube candidates, again, I just want to say thank you so much for doing the written application, the private interview, and the public interview. I know it's a lot. It can be pretty like nerve-wracking time on this well. So just thank you both so much, and you'll hear back from us in the next 1 to 2 days. So yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.